Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome back.
We're here with another episode of the Retail Lounge.
And today we'll be talking about technology and how that relates back into the retail industry. And I'd like to introduce Jonathan Palmer. He is our VP of Innovation and Technology here at Retail Without Boundaries. What's up, Jonathan? How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
We are awesome and excited to learn more about tech.
Cool. Anything, whatever you need to know. I've pretty much lived tech for the last 30 years, so I think I can help you along right there.
Yeah, it'd be great to, learn a little bit about you first off, and we can get right into it.
Yeah, I've been involved in technology. I'm originally from England, and I was actually brought over to work on projects for Foot Locker back in the day. For a British company that was responsible for building video walls for Foot Locker. And we ended up being acquired by an American company, and I was brought over and relocated over here to not only to help Foot Locker, but also to talk about and to source technology solutions for retail. And in my 30 years of doing that, that's related to both brands and retailers, big screens, small screens, interactive screens, and everything in between that see me work literally all over the United States as well as globally. So, and during that time, there's been a lot of change, obviously, as well. So,
awesome.
Go ahead, ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, so Jonathan, obviously, as technology has advanced, it's been a massive buzzword in all forms of our societal attributes, right? But we don't really discuss technology in retail as much, especially in relation to the design world and production and everything else emerging here. So I guess, can you hit on some of those specific emerging trends in relation to technology in retail, that are increasing the shopper's experience, or just whatever businesses are utilizing technology for in day to day to amplify their brands? A bit more knowledge on what you have to share there.
Sure. I think that the evolution of technology has been very stark from when I first started working on over here and within retail. Primarily when technology used to be implemented, it was put in basically any place that you could put a screen or hang a screen or incorporate a screen. Now technology is very much part of the retail landscape from when stores are being designed. The architects, designers are incorporating the screens into areas where there's going to be traffic, where there's going to be an opportunity to talk to the consumer in a different way using technology. And the other parts that play a big part in the implementation of technology is that technology now is, in terms of its reliability, is no longer a consideration. A lot of retailers and brands were very cautious about implementing rollouts of technology because they didn't want a headache in terms of maintenance and service. Now the reliability of screens, it's not even a consideration.
So that's funny you bring that up, because we were just talking about that. Ellie brought it up. She's like, I wonder, what it'll be like to talk about how we trust or do not trust, or what's the issues behind the scenes. And,
right.
So I'm glad you actually brought that up.
Yeah. Like what are those faulty underlying attributes that we at large don't really consider, or also what even are mistakes being made while utilizing technology in the retail space?
Yeah, I mean, retail, as we know, because we're in that industry, is a very unforgiving area, right? Things can get damaged, they can be broken. That we've all been in stores where displays and are treated horrendously. So technology has to be one, because of the cost of implementing technology. It can't be a consideration for anybody that it's going to go down or it's not going to serve its purpose. Dead screens is a bad look for any retailer or any brand. So, now with LED technology, all the advances in terms of display technology and also the players themselves, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a major service issue or breakdown of screens in store these days. So that's number one. Number two is how do you leverage that technology? I think that's changed as well. Now the consumer in store looks at technology as a means to gaining information, to expediting them through the process, to find out information in terms of products, to the interaction between personnel and the consumer in store has become much more. There's so much less people that can assist you with a purchase now. So technology is fulfilling that role as well. So in terms of, if you look at technology, basically you need to look at it from a purpose of saying, what does it do for the consumer? Does it expedite them through the process? Does it help them through the sale? Does it entertain them? Does it engage with them? Yeah. All of these attributes are all of the things that you need to take into consideration from a brand perspective or a retail perspective. And both of those are two different animals in themselves, right? A retailer is looking for technology typically to move people around the store, to inform them about promotions, to give them the opportunity to understand where they are in the store. That navigation is very important for a retailer, whereas a brand is looking for much more direct interaction with the consumer, to give them specific information and allow them the opportunity to engage with them ahead of their rivals and their other competitive brands as well. So there are different things that are going on. The other part that technology plays within is to close the loop, right? The loop between online, mobile, and in store.
Yeah.
So you're seeing now QR codes being part and parcel of digital signage. So the consumer now or the customer in store can browse and then take that information and make that purchase in a different app, at home, on the road, wherever. And now that it used to be, going back in the day, that the online sales and mobile sales were viewed differently, but now the retailer understands that these all come together as a cohesive loop between wherever that sale occurs. That's, as far as the retailer is concerned, that's what they want.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been talking to a few people about how important an SMS is, like a send me something campaign, and that a lot of the younger generation will go to the store and look at everything inside the store, but not even buy it. They'll then like either scan the QR code or take a photo or have the website already up, because a lot of retailers are looking for click-throughs, and then they'll buy it at home once they get there. They won't even interact with the cashiers or anything. So it's interesting that the use of technology is a balance between being invasive, enough to entertain and to educate those clients and those customers, but at the same time make it feel natural and not so invasive. So you're not, hacking into their phone or something like that where they feel like you're taking something personal from them. So yeah, it's an interesting balance.
And that's where AI is starting to come, to the fore, because targeted information that's based upon metrics, where you can, the considerations about the kind of communication, the type of information that different demographics want, is where AI is now fulfilling that role, right? So there's a lot of metrics information that can come back from interactive systems, from digital signage systems. What do you do with that, and how do you analyze that, and how do you take that content and make it relevant to the person who is interacting with it? Is one of the elements that one of the trends that you'll see much more of as AI becomes much more prevalent within the industry. It's the tip of the iceberg right now, but you'll see that much more. You're going to see much more targeted campaigns that and like you say, different demographics. For a younger demographic, they don't see technology as invasive. They see it as a tool. They have no fear of technology, and they can dip in and out of it as they want. Whereas an older demographic isn't, if it isn't targeted and it doesn't talk to them in their language and it's manageable.
For show no fear of technology.
See, AI is listening right now.
Talk about
Right
invasive.
there is an example of, Alexa or Siri talking to me. So perfect. But there you go. There is technology finds its way into everything that you do. And whether you think about it or you don't think about it, that was a perfect example of AI right there. Siri coming up and just saying, hey, I heard you talking about technology. Here it is.
Wow. That's scary.
So when we're talking about the advancements of technology, right, and how it's being utilized in retail, whether it's AI, augmented reality, and you make a great point in terms of younger generations and how it's becoming a second sense, right? It is a day-to-day. It becomes just a regular, you don't think about it. It's just there. It's not as invasive. But what are retailers doing based on your experience to make that process more sustainable? Because there, of course, is that conversation between, when are we becoming too abrasive? When are we benefiting the brand? What does that look like in this space? And whatever setbacks or challenges brands or technology in retail may face.
Well, I think that the biggest part of any of this is really the content. The content is the king right now, because if you think about it, as I mentioned before, the actual retail, the technology itself now is no longer such a big decision.
Yep.
It's how do you create content that is interesting, that's relevant, and how do you make sure that it doesn't get stale? And that plays into our capability to be able to produce content and to make it relevant and to make it interesting to whichever demographic you're talking to.
Yeah, I would say it's being efficient and constantly creating that content, like you said, to make it evergreen. And I think that's the beauty of being able to content manage for people. So you're just like, it's not going in and physically remounting things. You could simply just write a code and, change the colorway of an entire area if there's a lot of LED screens or, there's any new apps they're working with or anything like that.
I always say content is king.
Yeah.
Because, again, there were, the going back in, 10, 15 years ago, people were not looking at the technology was just being installed, but nobody was thinking about how to keep that content relevant and updating that content. And now we're at a point where, because it's a pass through from the technology standpoint, everybody realizes that because they're updating social media feeds, they're updating online feeds, they need to do the same for the retail technology applications. They have to stay relevant. There's nothing worse than going into a store and seeing a promotion on screen that's out of date, because it automatically is a turn off. People are not going to look at that. It has to be about now, and it has to be relevant. Otherwise, it's just going to be a turn off, and people are not going to pay attention to it.
Yeah, timing is key. Yeah, and I think that's the fastest way versus, we will still always need graphics to print and mount and install big installments, but to do quick things on a timely manner, that's the easiest thing to kind of skin it.
Right. Well, and now, from a digital signage and a management point of view, you can dial down to individual stores. You can create content that's geographically specific, or it's specific to promotions that are running in certain areas. There's no restrictions now about how you manage content, because there's so many different options. But with those options come a need for different content, right? You can't just take the same content and cycle it through. It has to talk to the consumer in a way that's relevant to them wherever they are. And the other part of that is that there's consistency, right? They can go from one store in Seattle to another store in New York, and it's still relevant to them when they're in either store. So that's another area of making sure that it can be locally specific, but it's still overall there is a general theme that they recognize no matter where they are in the store or in a geographic location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also say another important part when streamlining a lot of this is data collection. When it comes down to it, you can find out what store is doing better than others and how they should tailor it toward that demographic. I don't know if you wanted to touch a little bit about the data collection side of things.
Yeah, 100%, especially for interactive, any interactive kiosk now, the metrics reporting of, dwell time, what products are accessed, when they're accessed. Yep. You can build a profile of the typical of the consumer in store, and create a program that can be, during rush hours, they know that there is very little browse time. But during the day, you can create something that is much more, allows a consumer that might be in a bigger browse mode to interact much more, go through several steps to qualify them through to a specific product or recommendation of a product. So there are lots of ways that this information now can be managed and taken and create much more targeted information on the screens or communications to the consumer in store that's relevant again to them.
Mm.
Are you seeing any specific demands that retailers are asking for because of customers, gravitating towards one thing to another? Because, it's funny, during COVID, QR codes came back and they were gone for a long time. And they all of a sudden started showing up in restaurants again. And now stores are using them, and that became a trend. And it seems like they've made their way back. So that's, that's one example. But have you seen anything lately that people are kind of moving towards?
Well, I think it's more about the use of AI and AR and trying to figure out how to create an experience. There's a lot more focus on infotainment type experiences for consumers. You mentioned before about the take up of different demographics. I think that there is still this idea that you want to be able to talk to people in a way that they're comfortable with. Too much information is overwhelming for a lot of people. So I think that one of the trends is how do we create more of an experience and less of about target hard data focused at people. So I think for a consumer now, there are more options to create things that are interesting to them. I think that the reach of social media, again, I talk about closing that loop. Social media is also part of that. So, that the idea of how do we bring all of these things together in one place, but make it applicable to so many different demographics, I think is a big part of the push by retailers right now. They're curious about how do we leverage all of these different things, AI, AR, social media. How does it all come together in a retail space without it becoming so unwieldy that you can't manage it? So I think that a lot of it is that retailers and brands are coming to us and saying, how do we figure this out? What do we leverage right now? How do we, what's the scalability of a program so that we're not stuck that in 5 years' time when we're ready to implement something else that we can't do it because we don't have the bandwidth to do it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, I think that the considerations now are more about scalability. They're more about how do we leverage what the assets that we have right now, and then how do we add to those to make sense, and we can grow and we can inform a consumer and make them feel that we're bringing them along for the ride.
Yeah, I think that's really critical. And I like your use of the word infotainment. That's very relevant to the topic. And I've never heard that. So that's great. But I'm also curious, you talk about brands coming to you and trying to have that conversation about delegating the amount of information that is displayed technologically, right? Whether it's AR, AI, et cetera. On the back end side, what kind of tactics do you tend to utilize, or what's your go-to rhyme or reason behind solving these problems or delegating that? What does that conversation look like from the technical back end?
It really looks like they need to dial down what their initial purposes of implementing technology. It can't be technology for technology's sake, right? It needs to have a purpose, and that you need to start with that, and make sure that the stakeholders within any brand or retailer are on board with that. It can't be a situation where everybody's going to chime in and say, hey, we need to incorporate this if we're incorporating that, because it becomes too big too quickly. So you need to have a number of core decisions made at the outset that say, okay, the primary goal for us initially is just to inform people about about a new product that we're launching, or to allow them, because we have multiple products that all look very similar, we want to be able to allow them the opportunity to go through a step-by-step questionnaire that delivers them to a recommendation of a product. That's where you start with this. You can't start with, it can do a million things, tell us what you want it to do, and then, because and give everybody a multiple choice, and they check it because they're going to check every box.
Right.
You have to come back and say, let's figure out where we start with this. You can then, we can go through the crawl, walk, run situation, and you have all this ability to add on as you start. But let's get over the first hurdle and get it working and operational. Then we can grow. Then you can add all the other bells and whistles as and when you're ready.
Yeah, I would say too, that's probably the most sustainable way too to, drip out a test for a campaign is through technology. Because I know that's in the forefront of a lot of people's mind too. And the podcast before this with Bill Emmerich, we were talking about sustainability, and, then we mentioned that you'd be coming on, we'd be talking about how people would be moving towards more efficient ways of doing this. So I don't know if you have any thoughts toward that and the sustainable side of this. And again, this is very malleable and easy for retailers to kind of rebrand things or drip things out.
Correct. I mean, obviously, the actual creation of graphics and that the process of doing that, although that can be sustainable, you're still dealing with certain materials that have to be disposed of. Because a print campaign can only last so long, right?
Right.
Whereas technology now, you're looking at reality of a lifespan that can be 7 to 10 years in store, and within that time you could basically update content, which would probably at most would be manageable with four media campaign or printed image campaigns. Whereas you could update every month, every week, whatever, with a technology solution once it's installed. So there are definitely sustainability considerations as well. Just from the sheer application of how many print campaigns you'd have to run to it wouldn't even be applicable in scale against a monitor or LEDs in store.
Right.
Yeah, I would say too, even when it comes to design and creative, and I'm always kind of bringing that back into that full circle because, a lot of the technology side and the graphic side, you need the design team, the creative team to help with that. And so we always hear the thing about the Internet of Things is that topic that was brought out years ago, and how people are using that, especially in the design community, to bring AI, AR. There's still some hardware that needs to be done that they could leverage inside of their spaces. So I don't know if you've seen any trends towards that, if they're doing massive LED walls as interactives, because we're trying to sell experiences and lifestyles to people that they're going to buy into, and they want to do that on mass scales. So I don't have any thoughts towards, people using the Internet of Things. Well,
again, they're all relevant within, this is again this idea of closing that loop, right?
Yep.
The Internet of Things, AI, AR, or all of these things are all piled into this big bucket that's called technology at retail. And for some of the brands, it's applicable, and for some, it isn't. One of the things I get asked a lot is, how do I navigate what, AR? Can I put an AR experience in there? Can I add AI? And I'm like, well, what is it that you really want to do here? What, is that even applicable? For a lot of the retailers and brands that they have this discussion with, it isn't even relevant to them. But they want to use these buzzwords. They want to be able to talk about this. I will say one of the things that I've discovered about working with technology is one of those areas that goes right to the top of a lot of, whenever you're talking to a potential customer, suddenly VPs and presidents want to have a point of view about technology being incorporated into their space. Even if the investment is not even a quarter of what they're investing in their store environment, in their fixtures, whatever that is, there is something that is essentially very sexy about putting screens and technology into stores. And they love to put that in, share the annual reports, talking to, in potential investors, this idea that technology is something that people hold very dear in terms of what that it expresses a store that's forward thinking, a brand that's thinking, that's ahead of the game. And certainly you'll see that a lot of technology brands use technology as a means of communication, right? And those that don't look a little old to me.
Yeah.
If you're not using technology as a means of communication when you are a technology brand, you kind of look, it's a mixed message to the consumer.
Definitely. Well, that's the whole walk of life. As you said, technology has been the hot and heaviest headline since the first computer, right? And now that it's meshing into the retail world, I'm curious then to hear from you. Do you ever see a day, whether it's in the near or distant future, where all walks of retail can utilize technology, or maybe all brands become relevant to AR, AI, user experience? Do you see that day?
The big dream, right, for all of the retailers and brands is the Minority Report. If you ever see that movie, it's Tom Cruise walking along and the billboard is talking straight to Tom Cruise. Right? That's what everybody wants, right? Is to be able to have the system that is everything to anybody at any time, right? That's the whole goal. Do I think that will get there? We'll get to a point that that we can do that. I mean, the way that the way that is, or the passage that has led to that is mobile, smartphones. That is the way to create curated content that's specific to a consumer that they can dip in and out of. So I don't know if it's ever going to be that in store, but I think that the loop of all these different media platforms is gradually going to become much more relevant and tighter as everybody becomes much more able to use the metrics data, to use AI to leverage that, and to be much more specific to the targeted consumer. And the Minority Report, I don't know if that's actually going to be in store, but from the whole different omni-media point of view, it's going to be close.
Well, some actually last thoughts before we end the podcast, but toward that, how Hollywood and those guys, that was a great example, Minority Report, they bring out these technologies that they think will be in the future. So I'm wondering, sometimes like retailers want to like keep up with the Joneses sort of thing, where they see something cool and shiny in one section, but it may not make sense for them. And then they get caught in this loophole of buying tech and AR and everything that doesn't make any sense for them. So I'm wondering if a lot of this stuff is just going to become trends until that new thing comes out in a movie, and all of a sudden that CEO or somebody sees it and they want that inside of their stores.
Oh yeah, totally. The holographic technology. People have been playing with that forever and a day. I
Yep.
mean, I've been involved in, you know, that whole idea of the virtual product is a huge thing.
Yep.
And people have been trying to play in that space forever and a day. And because they've seen, you know, these kind of virtual products or, you know, some kind of intelligence talking to the consumer, you know, that is one of the things that, you know, I certainly, I think that at some point there will be an advance that they will figure out how to do that virtual product that's 360, that, you know, people can actually interact with at some point in time. You know, the other part of that is, you know, these virtual fitting rooms, and
Oh yeah.
they're still clunky,
Mhm.
you know, but again, there are these overarching goals that people have been talking about forever, and a lot of that is, you know, Hollywood, you know, certainly stimulates you know, that the creative juices to say, can we put that in our retail store? Is that a massive reach, or is that real? You don't know, right? Because production, it allows you to cheat anything.
I mean, I would selfishly want Tony Stark's changing room when he puts on his
No,
whole
honestly.
suit and everything. Just wake up
Honestly.
or go to a store and something just put something on you.
Right.
That would be awesome.
Or we'll be reaching
I
into.
did that a virtual, you know, something for Target
Yeah.
15 years ago. But, you know, yeah, of course, Iron Man is, you know, all of that. The whole idea of just standing there and, you know, suddenly you're Iron Man in 2 seconds would be great.
Right.
Or, you know, with this, you know, these jeans would go well with this T-shirt, would go well, you know, this whole idea of the problem is that, you know, it's still how to make it not clunky, how to make it seamless for a seamless experience, because people don't want to work, right? That's the problem about if you're asking people to do, you know, to have to figure stuff out when they're in that, you know, if they're in a hurry, or it becomes clunky, you know,
Right.
you need to manage the experience of the consumer, right? So they know whenever they're interacting with technology, they know that they can get in and out of it whenever they want, and that it isn't a rabbit hole that they disappear down. So, you know, if it is an interactive program, you let them know that, hey, in 1 minute we can get you to the right recommendation of a product, or in 3 easy steps. You need to let people know going in what the end result is going to be and how long it's going to take. Because if you just let them just disappear, you know, we've all done it, right? We've all been on YouTube or Instagram and, you know, or TikTok, and before you know it, half an hour's gone, right? Because it's a rabbit hole, and you're, oh, look at this, look at that.
Yep.
You can't do that in retail. In retail, you need to keep people focused and managed in terms of their time, so that, because they don't have that browse time. They're not going to invest 10 minutes of interacting with technology because it's too long.
Yeah, that's a critical
and
point.
attention spans are too short.
So I guess the goal of all of this is retail needs to be Minority Report one day.
Honestly.
Everybody knows that scene.
Yep. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, man.
But so yeah,
without, you know, the other part of that obviously is we don't want to lose our eyeballs and have those trained.
no,
honestly, yeah.
or turning the Wall-E either and just sitting in chairs with screens in front of us, like buying things that just pop up out of the chair.
Yeah.
That-
Agreed. You still, one of the things about retail that they'll never change, and that's the biggest thing, right, is the experience of actually testing, a product, fragrance, putting on a pair of jeans, and whether they fit right. You can go through every which way of giving you a person information, but until you put on that pair of jeans, that pair of shoes, and look at yourself in the mirror, you still don't know whether you like it or not. So technology is never gonna replace that, but it can help you get there a little faster.
Well said.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time and all the great information and conversation. And of course, up-to-date trending topics, all about everything tech, right?
except we just go back to the Minority Report.
And that's it.
Like, 20
Oh
years
my
old,
gosh.
right?
We're done. Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
man.
again. And, we'll talk soon. We'll have definitely an episode 2, I think, on tech as
Oh, yeah.
things keep emerging and growing. So we'd love to hear more.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Tech has the speed of tech in the last. If you go back from the 70s through to the 80s and the 90s, pretty slow.
Yeah.
90s to 2000s starting to accelerate, and 2000s where we are now, it's light speed. So yeah, everything's changing, the landscape's changing, and we're excited.
Yeah.
Cool.
Got to stay ahead of the game. Well, thank you everyone again for another episode here at the Retail Lounge. And of course, if you have any feedback for us or topics that you think we should cover, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. Or if you want to be a part of this conversation, reach out. We'd love to talk to you. So thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jonathan.
your time.
Thank you.